about tonight's conversation. For
He
those
sure
of
it's
you
live.
who are brand
Cool.
new, we're good?
He said it's not showing us right now,
Oh, okay. Let's see.
but it says we're live. I see
Okay.
75%. Let me turn off.
Okay. Let's
He
see.
sees it now.
Okay. Sees
We're
us.
good? Great.
Good to go. Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. We are live.
Great.
Okay. Happy Thursday. Thank you, everyone, for joining in with us. If you are live with my beautiful co host, Mariah Palmer, and I tonight on May 15th for Soil, Soul, and Spirit, we're happy that you're here. If you're watching us after and you're watching the replay, we are still deeply grateful for you being here. I'm Angel Shannon, founder and executive director of Siva Health and the Siva Institute, where we put mindfulness and compassion in action to help you live longer and live better. Soil, Soul, and Spirit is one of my favorite, favorite nights of the month because I get to join my dear friend, my soul sister, my spirit sister, Mariah Palmer. Mariah, thank you so much for being here again.
Absolutely. Time and time again, it's such a pleasure.
Time and
Um,
time again.
as Angel wonderfully welcomes me already, my name is Mariah. I am a lover of life in all of its forms, and I am a student of it. And I'm so excited for today's conversation.
Yes, very much so. And what Mariah and I have in common amongst many, many things is a deep, deep reverence for nature, a deep love for nature.
Mhm,
We always say that nature isn't part of our life, nature is our life. Nature is
mhm,
our life. We are nature. And Soil of Soul and Spirit is the conversation that we have every third Thursday about the interconnectedness of nature,
mhm,
um, of us with nature, the interconnectedness of all beings, and in essence, the garden of our life, what goes into the garden of
mhm,
our life. And tonight we're going to be talking about pollinators, purpose and pollinators. Who are the
mhm,
pollinators in your life? First of all, before we get into your
mhm,
life, we're going to talk
mhm,
about what pollinators are to begin with. So that's the where we're going to start, and then we're going to talk about what pollination means in your own life metaphorically and who those
mhm,
pollinators are, and invite you to think about what other pollinators you may need in this season of your life that may not already be present. But what
mhm.
we're going to do first, before we even jump into all of that, is just a short meditation, just to help you get grounded, to get centered, to be present for your own soil, your own soul, and your own spirit. So, wherever you
Mm,
are, I just invite you to get into a comfortable position and to just bring yourself into the space that you're in and allow your eyes just to close gently. And in this meditation, we're going to just
mm,
take a trip through the garden within, and we're going to welcome the pollinators to your life. I invite you just to take a nice, slow, deep breath. Inhale, and then just gently exhale and let yourself settle in.
mm,
Bring your awareness inward. Imagine yourself standing at the entrance of a beautiful, beautiful sacred garden. And this garden lives within you. It's tended by your hopes, your healing, and your heart. And as you continue to breathe, just imagine yourself opening the gate and stepping inside this beautiful sacred garden. Feel the richness of the earth beneath your feet. Breathe in the scent of blooming flowers, fresh herbs, the fertile soil. Listen to the soft hum of bees, maybe the flutter of a butterfly wing, or the breeze rustling through the branches, or a bird flapping through the air. But most importantly, this is your garden. It's vibrant, it's alive, and it is evolving. And this garden moves through the seasons just like you do. And in every season of your life, you are a reflection of this garden. In spring, there's tiny little green shoots rising from the soil with fresh ideas, new habits, and all kinds of new beginnings. And in summer, there's bold, beautiful color, your passions, your confidence, your joy, just bold, beautiful, bright. And then in autumn, you're in your garden gathering and reflecting and asking yourself, what has this season given you? What will you carry forward? And then in winter, your garden rests, quiet, powerful, and preparing for what's next. So just imagine yourself here in this beautiful sacred garden, knowing that no garden thrives alone. Imagine the pollinators coming, these forces that help your inner garden flourish. Beloved friends who uplift you, creative friends who help you to find the freedom to move and build and dance and dream. Meaningful conversations with friends who share stories that spark insight and make you feel connected. Mentors and guides, wise ones who light your path and cheer you forward. And then just some sweet solitude every now and again. Your own sweet silence, where your own deep roots are forming, getting stronger and stronger. So, as we move through this garden and in our conversation tonight, just think about these pollinators in this beautiful sacred garden and explore the question, who or what are the pollinators in my life right now? Which ones need more space to visit? And how can I be a pollinator in someone else's garden? So just allow yourself to take another deep inhale and exhale. Gently open your eyes. Come back into this space that we are in together.
Wow.
And I'm going to turn it over to my dear sister, Mariah.
Before we even do that, I'd like to say I'm often reminded why your name is Angel,
Mm,
and it's so fitting. That was a wonderful, wonderful image that you just painted.
thank you.
And I feel like I felt it all so vividly, as I'm sure other people did as well.
Thank you.
Ah, that
Thank
was
you.
wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm so
So,
calm.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, so let's jump right into it. Thank
yeah,
you so much for leading us
you're
through that,
welcome. Thank you.
um, to really help us feel connected,
Yes.
you
To
know?
get settled, to get in our
Hmm.
space, in our
Yeah.
garden tonight.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Hmm.
So,
Mariah, what are pollinators for people who
yes.
don't even know? What the heck are they
So,
talking about?
yes. So, I think often when people think of pollinators, immediately your brain goes to bees. And that makes a lot of sense because they are one of the main ones. But a pollinator is any organism that um, transfers pollen from the male part of a flower to a female part of the flower
Mhm.
and increases fertilization, which increases biodiversity. They are everything
Mhm.
for us.
Yes, they are.
Without pollinators such as, right, not only bees, but butterflies, bats. Bats are excellent pollinators, which we'll talk a little bit more about later.
Mhm.
But all different kinds of bird species, hummingbirds,
Mhm.
um, all sorts of birds. So they can come in many forms, even ants, right? They
Yes.
carry pollen on there, right? From the smallest to the largest.
Yes.
You can even consider, right? There are bears that are pollinators, right? So they're eating the fruits, and what their waste is
Mhm.
literally transporting the seeds through different parts of the world, right? Increasing biodiversity. So
Yes.
pollinators are so vital to not only, again, our direct community, but our entire ecosystem here in the state of Maryland and in
Mhm.
Baltimore, but also in Thailand and in Chile and in, right? They play such a crucial role to
Yes.
the lovely nutrients that we have access to, right?
Mhm.
Herbs we have access to. Um, they're so important. Without them,
Yep.
things would not multiply in the way
Mhm.
that they do, and that's why it is so important to educate ourselves more, have these open conversations, and work to do a bit better. Right? We are
Yes.
part of an ecosystem,
Yes.
and we are here to support one another, big
Mhm.
and small.
Big and
So
small. Yeah. And I love
pollinators
that
come
you
in
mentioned
many forms.
many forms. And I love that you mentioned the less than obvious ones. When we think about pollinators,
Yes.
like you said,
Mm-hmm.
immediately we think of butterflies or birds or maybe, dragonflies or things like that. But the
Mm-hmm.
less
Mm-hmm.
than obvious, and especially the ones that we tend to be a little bit more aggressive about, not thinking
Mm.
about like ants. Oh my goodness, there's an ant. Let's, you know,
They're
get rid
so
of it.
important.
Yeah, but they
Yeah.
are so important in the grand
Mm-hmm.
scheme of things. And
Absolutely.
I like that you mentioned even animals and what we call their
Mm-hmm.
waste. But when you
Mm-hmm.
think about it, that is pollinate, that is seeds that are being,
Mm-hmm.
excreted through their waste
Mm-hmm.
and becoming part of the soil, changing that soil microbiome, and then
Exactly.
creating a space for new life or new shoots, new trees, new roots, new herbs, all these things.
Everything.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's important to think, from the smallest to the largest, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're all so important.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yes, that's what
Yeah.
pollinators are. Um, and a few things, just to speak about a few things that you can do to attract pollinators
Mm-hmm.
around you. Again, increase biodiversity. So, when it comes to planting flowers that come in many different sizes and shapes and colors, right?
Mm-hmm.
That will definitely attract them. Fragrant scents. Um, they love plants in like the mint family, any sort of like zinnia or snapdragon. There are so many different kinds of wildflowers that you can plant and
Mm-hmm.
support to
Yes.
increase the home in which they thrive and are able to do the role that they came to do.
Yep, exactly. And I think that's so important when we're talking about like vegetable gardening,
Hmm.
which people do a lot of now in
Hmm.
at least where we are here
In
in
May.
our zone 7A, 7B, and
Hmm.
understanding how how much of a role that plays in helping those not just to grow certain vegetables, fruits and
Hmm.
vegetables, but for them to thrive, for them to
Yes.
be pest resistant, right? So
Hmm.
tomatoes and some of the things. I remember one summer I thought I was going to be growing Brussels sprouts, and I did, but they were covered in white flies, and it's a
Oh
common,
gosh.
common pest for Brussels sprouts, and I thought,
Yeah,
gee, I
those are
wish I
not
had
fun.
thought, yeah, I wish I had thought more about my pest management because,
Hmm.
again, integrated pest management, because there again, I had to pull up most of what I had grown because they were just
Mm.
covered with white flies. And then sometimes there's different things that grow on squash, different things on,
Hmm.
collards and all like this. But
It's
pollinators,
true.
yeah, pollinators can be very, very helpful in, and certain, as you said, certain types of flowers and things like that can attract the
Hmm.
pollinators away from what
Hmm.
we're growing as food, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Again, thinking of everything kind of as this interconnected system that is always working to maintain balance, you know,
absolutely.
as
Yep.
we are,
Mm-hmm.
as we are.
As we are.
So,
Yep.
I today, in honor of my grandmother who I've been missing, I had this wonderful like wildflower seed pack and I planted them in a one of her old pots and I put it outside and I can't wait to see what comes and what kind of things visit.
Yeah.
We're in a Mount Vernon apartment, so we don't
Mm-hmm.
have the same like gardening space
Yeah.
that some may have, that some of
Mm-hmm.
you all may have.
Mm-hmm.
But you make use with what you've got, and I'm
Yeah.
excited to see what visits.
And you'd be surprised what can grow in containers
Hmm.
and pots and how
It's
we
true.
can grow vertically as opposed to
Hmm.
horizontally. Yes.
Yes. I'm
All
excited for this journey, though. Very
yes.
special as it aligned
Yes.
with today, too.
Yes. You had mentioned, Mariah,
Hmm.
prior to us getting on the call, which was fascinating to me, you said pollinators
Hmm.
have been around for millennia, like they are ancient creatures. Would you speak to some of the spiritual, maybe nature of that or the connectedness, how you draw the parallel between the ancient nature of pollinators,
Hmm.
their survival, the
Yeah,
things that they have survived through the
they
years?
are so resilient.
Yeah.
I find myself laughing whenever I say this, but it's very much so the truth. They've been here far before we've been here.
Yeah.
And to think about that, right? Them as a community and like a species and a right, they are so developed and diverse and extremely resilient, right? They've seen this earth through a lot of
Yeah.
things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, long after we're gone, not to get a little, negative, but long
Sure.
after we're gone, they will still be here. I believe that.
Yes.
Right? Because that is why the earth is as green as it is, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Um, so they've been here for a long time, and I look forward to not only developing more respect for them myself, but encouraging that in others.
Mm-hmm.
And supporting their roles, trying to figure out what we can do to aid in them thriving, right?
Yes.
Instead of the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Exactly.
I don't remember the numbers specifically, but I was reading about how much more like wildflower gardens there used to be, even in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
um, like even 30,
Mm-hmm.
40, 50 years ago
Mm-hmm.
versus where we are right now in 2025.
Yeah.
And I wish I wrote them down. I'm sorry, guys. But the
Okay.
numbers were very scary
Yeah.
because there's this concentration on like these manicured lawns, right? And these picket fences. One of my biggest goals when we own a home
Mm-hmm.
is to get rid of the lawn and
Mm-hmm.
plant wildflowers, right? And
Mm-hmm.
encourage this biodiversity, this increased fertile land and soil that produces more life rather than spraying
Yes.
insecticides, right? And
Yes.
everything needs to be so that's not what nature is. Yeah.
Exactly.
So just
Exactly.
trying to get us closer to what our roots are.
Right. To what our roots are, and then I think, like you're saying, realizing that everything we do right now writes the script for our future,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
if we're conscious of native plants, like for one thing for me,
Hmm.
I always like to make sure that I'm buying native plants, native to Maryland, even though there are things that are
Hmm.
really super beautiful, but if they're invasive and they're going to not create that viable ecosystem for pollinators,
Exactly.
what
Hmm.
is the point, right? So if you're watching tonight and it's something that you're curious about and you're thinking
Hmm.
about having a garden, whether it's even if it's something as simple as container gardens on a
Hmm.
patio or something like that, just realize that you know when we don't have the types of plants that are native to our particular zone or region,
Hmm.
they may become invasive. They may detract the right pollinators. They may be a deterrent for
Hmm.
certain types of birds, certain types of bees and insects and
Hmm.
hummingbirds and things like that. We could actually be doing damage to the
Yep.
ecosystem just because it's something that we love and we think we're
Uh-huh.
doing a good thing by having a garden. So
Hmm.
I would always recommend that you just do a little bit of research about what is native to your particular region in the world, because that is another thing that helps to support having diversity, biodiversity, and having the right pollinators to
Absolutely.
visit.
Absolutely. Like
Yeah,
who is a part of your ecosystem and your community, who and what, right?
right.
And what will best support the overall balance
Yeah,
of it
yeah,
all, right? Because plants that are native to Maryland versus plants that are native to California,
right.
the care and the time and attention they need and the amazing little communities they support are going to vary. So
Hmm.
I think it's very, it's great to be have the intention
Yes,
to want to plant this and that, but it's important to do the research and educate yourself prior to
yes.
making those very
Hmm.
um, impactful decisions, right?
Right.
So I
That's
love
right.
that. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
some things, even some of the vines, like I know someone
Hmm.
who really loved bamboo, wasn't
Hmm.
very well versed in what they were planting, and the bamboo has taken
I
over,
was I was gonna say that's what
and
they
they,
do.
yeah, that's what bamboo does.
They take up any space that they can.
Yeah, yeah, which is
Yeah.
really interesting
Hmm.
all in of itself, biologically, just
Right.
knowing that
They've
bamboo,
been here a long time.
exactly, they've
Right.
been here a long time.
Hmm.
You will not, I've not seen anyone be successful in getting rid of bamboo
It's
yet.
hard to entirely.
Yeah,
It's
it
hard to
is.
entirely. That's one of those things. If you're ever on like Facebook Marketplace, you'll see people just trying to give away bamboo. It's because it's overgrown. It's very hard to
Exactly,
control, which is,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think,
it can be
again,
aggressive.
if we're talking about like just biodiversity, birds and things like that, I don't think
Hmm.
birds are really attracted to bamboo, right? So,
No,
yeah, so you don't get the
not
opportunity
many.
for
Hmm.
right, for flowering and the
Hmm.
dropping of seeds and things like this. So, just something to be aware of in
Yeah.
your actual garden is that when it comes to pollinators and inviting pollinators, it all
Hmm.
starts with that intention that we always talk about, Mariah and I, being well versed and being intentional about what we're putting in the garden in the first place.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And like I
Absolutely.
said, I love that you mentioned that they are ancient. They have been here for
Hmm.
years and
Very
years
wise.
and years.
Right? Something I'd like to speak to a bit. I think it's beautiful, even some of the traditions and behaviors, right? That
Mhm.
different insects and bugs and animals have gained from their past generations, right? Like
Mhm.
they're taught those things, a lot of it, but most of it's like instinctual as
Mhm.
well. And
Mhm.
that's why I say they're very wise, right? They know
Yes.
what they're doing. The bees,
Yes.
they're really not worried about you. They
Yeah.
really do have a job to do. I say that, but I was stung by my first bee
Yeah. Yeah.
like 3 months ago and it changed my life.
Yeah.
But it had a job to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It has a job to do. And Mariah, while we're talking about the actual physical garden, because we'll get into just the garden of our lives in just a second,
Hmm.
what are some of the things, the mechanical things that we can do? I mean, I'm thinking in my mind about birdhouses that we can put out and about, but what are some of the other things you think that might invite pollinators into the garden?
I think having, right, I will always say this, I think everything starts at the roots. and the soil health, right?
Mhm.
Um, and kind of supporting this kind of like this idea of living soil, right?
Mhm.
And what it means to be living. It means
Mhm.
there's a very vast number of different kinds of organisms, from fungi to very, very, very tiny beneficial bacteria,
Mhm.
right? And then we get to the lacewings that are eating the little aphid larvae off of the leaves and
Mhm.
protecting this and that. um, it's about creating living soil. And I think often, when people think about dirt and bugs, it's a scary thing, right? But they're just here to do their job, right?
Yeah.
And we want to do our best to support that. So creating living soil through fertilizing with very naturally derived ingredients,
Mhm.
um, and things that again will not um, make the right kind of bug stray away from the
Mhm.
environment you're trying to
Mhm.
build and support.
Mhm.
Um, Again, planting flowers and herbs that are attracting these um, beneficial insects and birds and such.
Yep.
Um,
Mhm.
and just being very intentional about avoiding harsh chemicals,
Yes.
right? Because that is literally like these very harsh insecticides, right?
Mhm.
Try
Mhm.
and think of ways like natural forms of biocontrol. If
Mhm.
you have a red spider mite issue, maybe you can introduce lace wings. They are a very, they eat spider mites. They also eat, so ladybugs are very good as well. They eat several types of like unwanted pests.
Mhm.
So the more living and wild and fertile you can make it, the
Yes.
better.
Yes.
That's what's going to attract everything
Mhm. Mhm.
in.
I agree. Yep. Yeah. I'm sorry. Mhm.
Oh no, I was just agreeing.
Yeah, I agree. And
Yeah.
I was thinking to what you're saying about soil is the beginning of everything. I can't think of
Hmm. It's
any
beginning.
pollinator that would be attracted to harsh, dry soil,
Hmm.
soil that's laden with chemicals, like you said. So that is
Yeah.
definitely the most important thing. And I was thinking
Hmm.
too about colors,
Hmm.
thinking about the different types of flowers that we can, as you said earlier,
Hmm.
even something as simple as like birdhouses and
Yeah.
also hummingbird feeders.
Hmm.
Even if you have a small patio or a window that you can sort of hook it to, you'd be surprised, how many
What
things,
visitors you get.
what visitors you get. If
Hmm.
you have an outdoor garden space, some of the little garden flags that they sell in the garden shops that have pretty
Hmm.
flower
Hmm.
colors on them and whatnot, those attract pollinators. I'll tell you what I have is
Hmm.
echinacea cone flowers.
Hmm.
And
Oh
oh my
yes,
goodness, the cone flowers like are
they love it.
off the chain. I mean, like
Yeah.
they attract so many hummingbirds. And I
Oh,
just sit
that's so
there and I
nice.
watch them and the
Hmm.
birds all and they're huge, so they're,
Yeah.
you know, um, sunflowers as well.
Hmm.
It's just a really beautiful thing to experience. Also, even I wonder if chimes, I mean, I don't know that there's any in the
Mm.
literature, I don't know what there is about the sound, but
I'm
I
sure if so.
wonder if
Hmm.
that would attract pollinators, certain types of pollinators
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
interesting. That's actually something I'd like to look into
Mm-hmm.
next. But
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine, as long as, they're not super like deep in tone and they're
Right.
very light,
Yep.
I guess,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like not too concentrated, but very like
Right.
faint but present. I'm sure
Yeah.
that could be very welcoming for, again, then for birds, some of these very natural like songs and
Mm-hmm.
chirps and these ways
Yes.
of communicating. I could definitely see that.
I could see that too. I'm going to
Wow,
look
that's
that
so
up in the
sweet.
literature.
Yeah. Well, homework.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's
I'll
so
have to
sweet.
add that. So I
Hmm.
wonder if we should think about drawing the parallel to from the pollinators in the garden to the
Hmm.
pollinators in our lives.
I think so. I think it's time. I think
Okay.
it's time.
Okay.
And I'll start off by
Yeah.
saying you are a pollinator in my life. Very directly, you've
Yes.
connected me to so many different opportunities you know, externally, but also internal. You've invited
Yes.
me to
Mhm.
dig deeper into self, and I'm grateful that you are one of my pollinators, Angel.
Yes. And
And I
you are
pray
mine.
that all of you who are watching take some time to think very intentionally about those people that really, right, increase the life around you
Yeah.
and in you,
Yeah.
um, that ask you to dig deeper and really elevate your life in the many forms that you can. So
Yeah.
thank you for being that for me.
Thank you for being that for me from the very beginning, you know. And I want to say that pollinators are, as we said, attracted
Mhm.
to sounds, soil, light, conditions. And that's what happened with Mariah and I. There was this instant attraction when we met at the garden shop. And I was just like, this is, first of all, she's such a beautiful woman to begin with. And just the light that you emanate, not just the light, the physical light itself, but the lightness of heart, the lightness of spirit. You know, when you were saying something earlier before we went on cam and you were like, oh, I was worried. I was like, you are worried? I've never known you
Right?
to be worried. You don't
It
ever feel
happens.
worried. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thank you for being a
Mm.
pollinator in my life. And that makes me think about when we say pollinators and cross
Mm.
pollination, when we think
Mhm.
about it professionally, right? And this
Mhm.
is something I learned early on in my career, how important
Mhm.
cross pollination is. It's important that we know people from different backgrounds, with different
Mhm.
skill sets, with different life experiences. You know, those of us who are in healthcare, myself being a person in healthcare,
Mhm.
I can't imagine all of my friends and the people that I know only being healthcare people, right? It would lead for a
Mhm.
very one-dimensional life. And so from
Mhm.
the very beginning, when we think about cross-pollination and pollinators, we think about
Mhm.
as what it means to have that biodiversity, have people from different walks of life, different
Mhm.
experiences who can add to our lives, who there
Mhm.
can where there can be some exchange and some offering that leads to the building of the beloved community that we all want to live in, right? And I
Absolutely.
used to think a lot about in the earlier part of my career networking,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
realized that networking, as complicated as people have made it to be, is
Mhm.
really just a form of pollinating. It's a form of
Wow.
building
Yeah.
community, right? It
Mhm.
really,
And
there is
communicating. Mhm.
communicating. There is no networking without people. So the minute someone says, well, how do
Mm.
you define networking or what is networking and how do you network and all these other things, it's for me, it's just pollinating. It's being
Mm.
intentional about what I bring into the collective and what I look to
Yes.
bring out of the collective back into my life. So I just want to
Oh, I
take,
love that.
I've got
Mhm.
this list of what I think are some
Mhm.
essential pollinators to have in the garden of your life. And Mariah, you have this list I shared with you. So if you
Yes.
have others that you want to add, or if
Mhm.
one resonates for you more than the other,
Mhm.
um, I'm going to ask you to jump in. But I think for me, the first and most important pollinator on this list for me is the safe space holder. You need
Mm.
a person in your life. You need a pollinator in your life who is able to be a safe space. There's a lot
Absolutely.
going on in the world these days. That person could be your
Mm.
husband, your wife, your partner, your lover, could be a best friend. But with
Mhm.
all that's going on in the world today, and always has been going on in the world, I mean,
Mhm.
much of the things we see happening today are not new. You know, there's always been
History
conflict.
repeats itself.
Exactly.
Mhm.
History repeats itself. But
Mhm.
I think the most important thing that we can ever have in our group of pollinators is the person who is a safe space
Mhm.
that we can go
Absolutely.
to and be
So
our
important.
true selves
Mhm.
without fear of judgment, without fear of harsh language, without fear
Hmm.
of non acceptance, having a safe space and
Hmm.
not just one. If you have
Hmm.
multiple pollinators who are safe space holders for you, I think you can
That's
consider
something to
yourself
celebrate.
very blessed. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. What do you think?
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I agree. And as you're sharing all of this, I'm thinking about who those people are in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for them.
Yeah.
And another thing I appreciated you said was kind of highlighting how important the like biodiversity aspect is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not only in the garden, but in the garden of your life.
Yeah.
The more that you're safe, even like your safe havens
Yeah.
are diverse, they have different perspectives to offer you
Mm-hmm.
and maybe help you navigate whatever professional situation or emotional situation,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you're
Yes.
navigating. Hmm.
Yes. So that was
So
the
important.
first one, the safe space holder. This is the person who holds your full self with compassion, a place of unconditional emotional safety. That's like
Mm.
top on my list of pollinators.
Yes, yes.
Um, the next one
Hmm.
is for me on the list is the light giver. This is that person or that pollinator who offers wisdom and perspective. They help you stay hopeful even in darkness. Having a pollinator in our life, a person in our life who is a point of light,
Hmm.
who
Hmm.
helps us stay hopeful and optimistic
Ah.
and sees the upside of things and sees, look at
Hmm.
the bright side, at least you have this, you know, the person who helps you stay in a place of gratitude, the
So,
person
so
who's,
valuable.
yeah, so
It's so
valuable,
important. You
so
need that
important.
on the
Yeah.
rainiest of days. You need the companions that will look at you and let you know that this is temporary,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And when the
Yes.
storm's over, it may take a little while, but the
Hmm.
sun will be right there because it's always going to return.
Yes.
That's
The
the way it
light
works.
givers. The
Hmm.
light givers.
We
Yes.
definitely need that pollinator.
We need that pollinator. I'm going to
Yes.
check that one
And I'm
off. So,
grateful I try to be that in those lives around me.
yeah, same here.
Hmm.
You know, and I know
In the
we hear,
little
yeah,
ways.
yeah.
They
And I
make
want to
big,
say,
big differences.
right. And Mariah, don't
Hmm.
you know when you're at capacity and maybe you just need some self care so that you can maintain that ability to be a
Oh,
light in other people's
absolutely.
lives? I mean, because
That
we can't
sort of,
have the light on all the time, right?
not all the time,
Not all
not
the
all the
time,
time,
but we
or
want
maybe
to
not
be
at the
light
same
bearers.
capacity.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. I was actually just speaking to a friend about that today, the importance of taking that time to recharge,
yeah, yeah.
really, truly recharge ourselves, whether that's meditation
Hmm.
or yoga 1 hour a week, or just simply quiet time
Yes,
by yourself with a candle when you get home from work.
yes.
That time to recharge is crucial.
Hmm.
Never feel guilty for rest. It's
That's
what
right.
literally allows you to continuously show up as your best self. Um, and I can think about the times in my life where I was not prioritizing that.
Hmm.
um, I think people have always nicknamed me Rye Sunshine, but I
Hmm.
feel like I'm shining brighter now more than I ever have,
Same.
because I take that time to recharge. So
Absolutely.
definitely, there's another right element
Yeah,
of being that light. We're not, the
right.
sun is not up every like all day long,
All day
right?
long. Exactly.
You have to charge. Got to recharge.
Charge. Yeah.
It's so
So I
important. Yes.
checked off light giver. I checked off the space, safe space holder. I also checked off, I mean, all of these, and for those of you who are watching, we have this in a PDF. If you'd like to have it, please do. I'll add the contact
Yeah.
information at the end. But
Hmm.
there's also for me on this list of pollinators in the Garden of
Hmm.
Life, the mirror, the person who reflects your
Hmm.
truth back to you without judgment, helps you see yourself clearly and grow. Mariah, can you speak to that? The
That is
mirror.
absolutely my husband, William. I feel like regardless of the situation, good or bad, he's a very level playing field, kind of calm perspective
Yeah.
on it that I really value. and he does an excellent job of reminding me who I am.
Yes.
Um, Again, there's a lot of crazy things going on in the world, and you need that person that's going to look at you without judgment, and remind you this is who you are, because it's natural to forget on occasion. Um, so absolutely.
It
And
is.
as we all are like walking mirrors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's important to be very selective about that person, right? Hopefully, it's
Mm.
someone whom has known you through many seasons, right? Through the
Mm-hmm.
cold, through the heat, through the rich, through the poor,
Mm-hmm.
because they're well versed in, kind of helping you navigate those situations.
Mm.
So being selective, right? We should be selective about our pollinators and
Yes.
what we're trying to grow, right?
Yes.
What
Yes.
we want to
Yes.
invite versus what we don't, which we would never want in our garden, right?
Exactly.
Being selective about that. Again, as
Yes.
you were talking about planting,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so, oh, I love that. The
I
mirror.
love
Mm-hmm.
that you said that. I love that you said two things that are just hitting me like right here about being selective and people who are well versed, who have been through with us through many seasons. We're talking about the
Mm-hmm.
garden of life, right? And in the garden, we've got winter, spring, summer, and fall. And it
Year
is
and
so
time
important.
again.
Yes, because
Mm-hmm.
I want to stay on this just a second because if
Mm-hmm.
people only see you in summer, what's happening in summer? Everybody's
Whew.
happy in the summer. Everybody's there's not a soul on the planet that is unhappy in the summer. Even if it's 150 degrees outside, people are still happy
I'm
because the
happy.
sun is shining, right? Everything is perfect in the summer, but what about your winters? What about
Mm-hmm.
the winter of your life when
Mm-hmm.
everything's beneath the surface? Nothing is
Mm.
really blooming and obvious. The slow seasons of your life. If you're
Wow.
starting a business and it's just slow and you
Mm-hmm.
don't have any customers yet, if you're pursuing,
Mm-hmm.
higher education and you're just digging in and it's just so hard, the program you're in, or whatever the season is in your
Mm-hmm.
life, whatever your winter is, you know, are
Mm.
there pollinators in your life that are still swooping through and able to still hold the mirror up and say, I know this is hard. I know it's cold. I know it doesn't look like anything
But
is
you're
happening,
right there,
but you are
and
right
I
there
see you,
and
and
I
I
see
see
you.
you.
That is
Mm-hmm.
a crucial
I love
pollinator to
that.
have.
I
Crucial.
love that.
And my husband is that for me. I'll be honest, like
Amen.
someone who can say, I know you're sad today and I know you're disappointed. And I'm not going to try to pull you out of this feeling. Just
Mm-mm.
rest and and just take a day to go for a walk or what have you. Come back to it tomorrow. But I
Yep.
just want you to know that you are there. And girlfriends, I have two
Yes.
girlfriends that I can truly count on to hold up that mirror.
I have seen you surpass. You can do hard things, right?
Yes.
And I think too, thinking on the opposite perspective of that, right? A mirror, it's literally a reflection.
Yes.
And as we speak life into those around us, I find I'm speaking directly to myself.
Yes.
Likely, I'm telling you exactly what I need to hear as well, right?
Yes.
So, this is a constant, energetic, spiritual exchange because we're all just a part of a greater whole.
We are part of this ecosystem. And you were that for me. I'll tell viewers, you were that mirror pollinator for me recently when I was sharing some things in conversation with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you were saying, Angel, you're doing amazing work. And this, is this and
So
this
true.
is that. And we had that heart to heart conversation. And it was so uplifting. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
in that winter, we all go through this winter, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily on the Gregorian calendar. We can have a winter in the middle of summer.
In the summer.
We can have a summer. We can have summer at 8 o'clock
Absolutely.
in the morning and then have winter at 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
So I'm not just
it's
talking
true.
about the season as in the
Mm-hmm.
3 months, but even just that circadian rhythm that happens in the day,
Yes.
where you wake up and everything's going right. But the minute you go out the door, one thing and one thing and one
Hmm.
thing, and next thing you know, you're in your winter,
You're
and
in
it's not
winter.
even 12 o'clock.
You got to shut down. And then it's coffee, coffee, coffee.
Yeah,
Relax. You
yeah,
need to meditate.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
So
love that.
those were the three for me. Did you have your list handy? Did you see
I
anything
don't have it
that
handy on me,
okay.
and I'm sorry I didn't take notes. But
No
if you
worries.
shout them out, I can remember.
I know you
I
remember.
just,
Yep.
if I go out of this, I'm gonna
Okay.
lose the
No
video,
worries. No worries.
and my phone's
Here
over
is
there. Sorry.
another one. This is one of those things that is not a person, but it is a
Hmm.
pollinating thing.
Hmm.
We talked about this last month, grounding
Yes.
practices.
Hmm. Yes. That
Grounding
is so
practices.
important.
A daily ritual like gardening, walking, watering the plants, journaling. I know when you water your plants, it's like a whole,
Oh, it's a
it is a
whole
thing.
thing. It's a whole thing for sure.
Yeah.
And that's not going to change. Even today, before I left work, my coworker asked me to water the garden. And while I was ready to go,
Uh-huh.
it was the very thing that I needed to do
Yeah.
because
Practices
I
that
saw so
steady
many
your
things
nervous system and anchor
in
your
those
day.
5 to 10 minutes. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I know you gave a very good, thorough list of some examples of that,
Uh-huh.
but not only are they important, like individually, but as a collective.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if you really were to incorporate each of, let's say, maybe 5 things in your
Hmm.
day, what a
Hmm.
difference that would make.
Oh my
But what a
gosh.
difference even one makes.
Yes. Like our
So,
grounding meditation when we
mhm,
before we started
which
tonight.
was excellent. If
Thank
you
you.
all did not see that,
Yeah.
please,
Yeah.
please go watch. That was
Yep,
great.
watch the replay. Yes, for sure.
Hmm.
Something that takes us back home to
Hmm.
ourselves.
Hmm.
So grounding
But that
practices.
has to be a part of our garden. And I would equate that to like our toolbox as
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
What do
And
we
if you
have to
didn't
reach
see that
into when we need it?
conversation yet last
Yeah,
month, that's what we were talking about. Yeah, it
yeah.
has to be.
And how to
Mhm.
build that.
Yep, yep.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh, well,
what do
wonderful.
you think about? We've got a couple more minutes. What do you think
Yeah.
about the pollinator, the fire starter that ignites your creativity and
Hmm.
inspires bold action? Someone
I
in your
loved
life,
that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
someone in your life who lights a fire under you, gets you going into bold action. Would you speak to that?
Hmm. Absolutely. Firstly, I think immediately my brain goes to creativity
Hmm.
in its many forms. I have a great friend who I'm thinking of, Magenta, who is that for me and really inspires this kind of like freeness in create through creativity in many forms,
Hmm.
whether that is dance, whether that's painting,
Hmm.
whether that is, yes, trying to think about the business I'll have, right? And what that
Yes,
will look like and really
yes.
putting the work in behind that. I
Hmm.
feel like they're one of those people for me. Having that person is so important because you're
Hmm.
not always going to feel ready to fruit, but you
Yes.
have to be reminded you are the fruit itself.
Yep. Exactly.
And they're
Yep.
that for me. So this fire starter that's going to be like, you can do it, you can do it, you can do
Yes.
it, don't give
And
up.
come on, let's go. Yeah.
I've seen you do it before, you can do
Yeah.
it again.
Yes. Yes.
um and reminding you that everything that you need is within you. Hmm.
Hmm. Hmm.
You need that person.
You need that person. You need that pollinator, you know?
Yeah.
And for
i
me,
think i think fertilizer would be that, thinking like realistically, like directly about the physical garden.
uh-huh.
I think fertilizer is that fire, that catalyst that goes, you can do it, let's push it, let's
Yes.
push this out, let's get this going,
Let's
let
get
me
this
feed you,
going.
like literally let me fuel you.
Yeah,
So you need fertilizer.
you do. You do. And I was thinking about this too when you said creativity. The person who immediately came to my mind, it's
Hmm.
interesting, starts with an M also. You said magenta.
Oh.
My friend Michelle, who is, she's the only person I still know from elementary school, right? So far back in memory. But
Wow.
she is left-handed and
Okay.
very much an artist. And she and I were talking the other night about uh, just, play and having time for play. And what are you doing? What are you, aside from, because, you get into these conversations about work, but it's like, okay,
Hmm.
wait a minute, let's talk about play. What are you doing for play? And she's one of those people that I can always talk to about what I am playing with, right?
Yeah.
So for
Hmm.
her, she had said she just bought this plant, a hellebore,
Okay. Uh-huh.
helleboris she
Yeah.
purchased. And she was so excited about this helleboris. And I told her, I can't believe you said that because I just have a hellebores. I'm just in my mind. Oh,
Wow.
this is my fix this year is hellebores. I've
Mhm.
never even thought about
I get it.
helleborises.
Yeah.
But
They're
every year
beautiful.
I have something that I obsess about with plants. So
Fair.
this
Or
is
every
it.
month,
Right. So she
realistically.
was telling me about planting her hellebores and whatnot. And
Hmm.
then she told me that she's been knitting. I'm sorry,
Hmm.
crocheting. She sent
Okay.
me a
Uh-huh.
picture of a crocheted sweater she made. And I said, Michelle, I want to do something like that. I said, but my problem
And
is
you
I can't fix,
started.
I can't, no, I didn't. And I told her, my issue is I can't fix my mistakes. In other words, when I get going
Mm,
with a knitting project, if I miss a row or something like that, I have such a hard time fixing those mistakes. And she said,
mm.
Angel, isn't that a metaphor for life, right?
Yes,
She
yes,
said that's a powerful
definitely.
metaphor. You've got to
Hmm.
play. You've got to go back. You can't let making a mistake,
Perfectionism,
right? Or
kind of dictate what your limitations are.
exactly. And so
No,
she
it's like
said to
that
me,
piece is still beautiful if there's 110 rows that are perfectly aligned. If there's one off, I think that just makes you human.
yeah, but Mariah,
It is hard.
what happens when I'm supposed to do a stitch and then I drop it and then there's a hole? How
Yeah.
do you go back and fix that? So that's what she was
Here's
saying to me. She said, don't worry about it. Get online, watch on YouTube, play around with it, is what she said. And so, as
yeah,
an artist, her whole life is centered around
play.
play.
We need those people.
Yeah, we need those
We need those
pollinators.
people. Yes. Yes.
People who remind
That's so
us to
sweet.
be playful and to
Hmm.
play, to not take any of things so seriously.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Crucial pollinators. So we
I love
identified
this.
at least five. And I will say that
Hmm.
for those of you who want some journal prompts to explore who the pollinators are in your lives, get some ideas of some other spiritual pollinators. The things
Hmm.
that Mariah and I just mentioned, where we talked about having someone who is a mirror, someone who brings light, someone who kicks that fire up underneath us, someone who is a safe space. Those are more
Hmm.
in the realm of spiritual, soul renewing pollinators. We've got a
Hmm.
whole list here. If you'd like to have that list to journal about and to see
So
it
good.
as a map, to map out who those people are in your life, feel free to reach out to me. You can email me at, let's see, I wonder if I can show this
Hmm.
address. If not, I'll just, you know what, I'm not going to even run the risk of pressing anything. I will just
Just
say,
reach out.
yep, reach out to me. I'll drop the email in the comments and I will send this PDF over to you so that you can use it for journaling, maybe even mapping out, and for the rest of the year, maybe even just writing out a little note card to each pollinator and saying, I'm so deeply grateful for you being
Mm.
part of my ecosystem. And I'm grateful for you being in the garden of my life. I think someone receiving something like that would probably be
Oh,
moved to tears in the
oh yeah.
days that we're living in now, when people can hear and
Hmm.
see a written note that
Just a little
says
bit of joy.
a little bit of joy.
A
And
text
so,
is nice, but a note
yeah,
with a little bit of glitter and maybe some
yeah,
dried flowers and a pretty
yes,
pen,
yes.
that's nice too.
Yes, and surprise, surprise in the mail. Thank you for being a pollinator in my life in this way. So I'll get that
I love that.
PDF to you, and you can use that as some journal prompts, a wheel where you can figure out and map out who those pollinators are, and then go
Yeah,
deeper with those journal prompts. How's that
that
sound,
sounds lovely.
Mariah?
It sounds lovely. I'm
Yes.
excited for everyone to have access to that. It's so good.
Yep, it is. Well, I think we are at the top of the hour and being mindful and respectful of the evening. I want to just
Hmm.
say thank you so much once again for being here with me for this really
It's a
powerful
pleasure.
conversation. Thank you
Hmm.
so much to William for all of his backstage support
It's
and,
true.
and being the pollinator in my
He's
life
needed.
as well. Yes,
Oh, that's
yes.
so sweet.
And thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. Please do share this video with someone that you love and care about, and
Hmm.
keep coming back because we're always putting together wonderful conversations that help
Yes,
you think about the garden of your life every third Thursday, Soil,
yes.
Soul, and Spirit, right here at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all.
Have a good
Bye.
night. Bye bye.